Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Reviews with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about Mojiken Studios' petite sci-fi visual novel, Divination. Find out if I thought it was a touch predictable, or if it managed to be a divine experience. Somewhere in the city rests a room full of monitors, which rests home to a diviner who has never been wrong. You take the role of this character, providing answers to those who seek your wisdom and guidance, and ultimately bearing witness as their lives intersect and influence the city. Which is to say, Divination is a very weird journey, which not only provides a snapshot of 4 clients who seek out your aid over the course of the game, but slowly starts to paint an altogether disconcerting image of our protagonist as the story progresses. In fact, this mystery rests central to the game, since once you finish a read-through of this title, odds are that you'll be sent hurtling back to the beginning to piece together a new potential future for the city. I'll admit that while it's a very neat concept in theory, in practice it's definitely hindered by the notable chunks of English that crop up in the game, enough so that I may have at one point been struck 1000% dead during a stream. That said, it wasn't just the linguistic flubs that irked me. Considering the potential amount of iterations that can crop up with the various outcomes, I was hoping for more unique dialogue and outcomes, but ultimately ended up finding a lot of reiteration as I progressed through future runs in search of the game's true ending, which was pretty neat once I reached it. Now, on a gameplay front, Divination is incredibly simple. To advance the story, you simply click along, and there's an option to skip dialogue that I used a lot during later playthroughs. Whilst you can choose to optionally ask questions, these don't actually influence the route you're on and simply serve as more background and opportunities to flesh out the character. Instead, the main gameplay element comes from the players aligning the runes to form pictures, which in turn answer the client's question and cause them to act in a certain way. To reach the true ending, you're more or less tasked with figuring out what specific pictogram solutions will in turn set up the perfect sequence of events for what you're searching to do. To this end, there's actually a scene selection log that helps mark down which combination of runes you've used on which characters. That's fairly helpful if you've lost track. Okay, so as so far, I may have criticized some elements of the game, but I cannot fault its soundtrack at all. Divination hits some lovely notes over the course of its soundtrack, and I found it a weird combination of soothing and disconcerting, which had me actually going back to listen to some of those tracks. On a visual front, I found that Divination looks fairly neat, and the graphics served well enough to help progress the story forward. That said, you can expect still images more often than not, though there are some brief animations in the mix. So, we're at the finale, and you might be under the impression that this review is shorter than the majority. And you wouldn't be wrong. As a game, there's not a lot of complexity to Divination, and even narratively, things never branch out or get overcomplicated per se. If anything, it's an adventure that you can digest in an hour or two seeing everything. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I certainly could have appreciated a bit more there, especially since I ended up seeing the same things over and over again, even as I fumbled around with new permutations. Between that and the breaks from immersion I got due to the plethora of, linguistic quirkiness that riddles the script, it's probably why it ultimately only resonates with me as a fumble. It's not bad, but I'd only really recommend this to someone who's specifically looking for a weird visual novel or one with a dystopian sci-fi bent. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. And for those interested in more indie reviews, developer interviews, podcasts, or Monday TTRPG content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. And there's also our Discord. You can click the link in the banner description to become a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a coffee running now to help supplement funds for a lovely editor and buy us sandwiches and coffee. It also helps make sure we can continue to provide quality content. Again, check the description and the banner for them links. Also, let us know in the comments if you think a Patreon would serve us better. With all that said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.